And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law. Now, here's Sterling Fox.
On a good day, we can work it out. Good morning and welcome to The Law Show here on CL 650. Sterling Fox with you, joined in studio by David Halkett from Macquarie Hunter. We're going to talk family law on the program. David, good morning.
Thank you, Sterling. Good morning to you, too.
It's good to have you along with us. Tell us a little bit about your company, first of all, and we'll find about a little bit about you. Macquarie Hunter is a Vancouver firm that once a long time ago used to be called Macquarie, Hunter, Fisher, McKinnon, Gates, Patanuzzo, and Pierce, but mercifully became Macquarie Hunter, so we could all at least say it more than once a week.
Exactly. It's a firm based in Central City in Surrey.
Okay.
And we have about 25, 26 lawyers, plus 60 or so staff. And we all have one floor in the Central City Tower above SFU.
Okay.
And so I've been there since April of 2003, and I'm the head of the family law department. We're a full-service firm. We do corporate law, we do commercial litigation, estates, wills, and PI. Is our main area.
PIs and personal injury?
Exactly.
Okay. So, but you're a Montreal guy.
I am.
Who moved to BC, had the presence of mind to be moved by his parents,
Exactly.
and recognized once he got here, wow, this was okay, and you've never gone away.
No, I moved here in 1980. My dad was transferred. I was pulled kicking and screaming.
Out of Montreal, sure, of course.
As I was saying, I was about 13. I was turning 14 in the summer when we moved. But yeah, I've lived in Surrey, South Van, and New West since 1980.
Mm-hmm. And why did you choose family law? Did you go to law school, for example, David, going, when I get my scroll, I'm going to be the world's best family lawyer?
No, actually, that's a funny story, Sterling. I never wanted to do family law when I was in law school. I thought I wouldn't be a good enough talker or speaker, so
Okay.
I thought I'd do corporate stuff, and I thought that'd be the interesting area to, the old jokes of the guys in the three-piece suits and the pinstripes and the stogies, so to speak. But once I was an article student, because in BC you have to do your 3 years of law school and an article for a year.
Right.
I was sent down to court a lot, and remember the first time I got yelled at by a judge, I thought that was kind of cool, and I realized I could talk when I was in court. And so I thought I'd be doing
now
more.
as an articling student, or basically an intern for a year. Did you have to speak in court?
Yeah, we had a rotation. So once a week we'd be once a month or so, 1 week we'd be the article student who had to do all the court appearances.
Okay.
And so I got to do a fair amount that year, and some contested applications and such, and it was really interesting to do. And I realized when I saw other lawyers who would sometimes fumble for words, because I'm so used to watching TV law.
Right, aren't we all?
That the lawyers never make a mistake.
They never do. They've always got the right words.
Nice
They're so glib on TV, aren't they?
Exactly. So when I realized others fumbled, I thought I could do it too.
Right.
And I liked the litigation aspect more than the solicitor stuff. So I went into litigation, and I worked at a small firm for a few years, for about 3 years. Then I went to worked with one other lawyer for another 7, and I went to Macquarie Hunter in 2003. And I fell into family law, so to speak.
Right.
That was a lot of the work that was coming in one firm I was at, and I realized I could do it, and I could handle the emotional stuff and distance myself. So I was able to. That's what I've turned into.
Well, and that was what I'm glad you mentioned the emotional stuff, because from where I'm sitting, I would think that one of the major challenges facing a practicing lawyer in the family segment of the law is dealing with the just incredible emotions, David, that are at play. You're talking about issues of broken trust and broken hearts and broken dreams and just an avalanche of emotion. So when you got into the business, I'm sure you were probably swept away more than a few times.
Well, yeah, the first time I remember the first question I got once was, I just separated from my husband. Can I start dating? And we're like, okay, how do I handle this one?
I'm not your mother.
Exactly, exactly. And when at first when people would be arguing over.
But I guess the question, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that question naively presented the person probably wanted to know whether it was legal, whether she would jeopardize her legal status by going out with someone else while there were maybe divorce proceedings still up in the air.
Exactly, and people always think that, if you're with someone else, does it affect my division of assets,
Right,
custody, and all that stuff. So yeah, that is a factor that a lot of people think of.
Okay.
I just wasn't expecting that as one of my first questions as a family law lawyer.
Okay.
But no, when I took the course in law school, it was interesting, some of the interesting aspects of it, like what constituted adultery in the old days, what constituted division of assets, those kind of things. So it was interesting, but I never thought I'd practice in it.
Right.
But I get the wide range of emotions. As I tell everyone, no one comes to see me happy unless they're adopting someone.
Right. Okay.
Adopting a child, because everyone's coming in from a breakdown of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may be the first time. They may be children of divorce, but they never think they're going to get divorced, and it's very emotional for a lot of the people. And it's taken over the years. I've learned that you have to let them be emotional, then you get to the legal aspects.
I suppose so. In a lot of cases, experience now. Because how long have you been practicing family law?
Basically exclusively since 1996.
Okay, so that's 20 years,
Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. I've been a lawyer for 23 now.
Right. So all those years of experience now have taught you, have developed a style, I'm sure, David, that you're that guy that they can rely on.
Exactly.
And you let them go. If there's a need to vent and weep, then by gosh, let them flow.
Well, exactly.
Kleenex isn't that expensive.
Well, exactly. I tell them that, you can tell me all your emotional aspects at my hourly rate, or you can go to a counselor at like a third of the rate.
Right.
Usually they choose the counselor rate for
Right.
the emotional aspects.
I'm sure, but still, in that initial meeting,
Yep.
there's still, even though there's a rational, I'm here because my life has fallen apart and I'm angry and I want to move on and we need to get a divorce and we need to take care of business. That's a very logical, intellectual presentation of a human mess who's not going to present his or her case in those words ever, are they?
Exactly. They come in and they can ramble on for 20 minutes about stuff that has no bearing whatsoever on the division of assets. But
Right.
Our families are our base units in our society.
Right.
And when they break down, no one knows. You're crossing the Rubicon, like when Caesar did it in 44 BC or whatever. You never know what's going to happen afterwards.
Right.
And so my job is to let them know what the legal aspects are going to happen, what could happen in terms of the law, and then the emotional aspects do get easier over time.
Oh, okay. I wanted to just ask you before we really get into the family law stuff, on a personal level, you do something with some of your limited spare time that I've done in the past as well. You teach part-time. I taught at BCIT. You teach at Vancouver Community College. What are you teaching there?
I teach an evidence course. It's usually every April, May, and June.
Okay.
And it's in the paralegal department. I had taught family law courses before, but family commitments kind of took over. But I teach
He has a
course.
son in hockey, friends. Let's cut right to the chase here.
Yeah,
that chews up a lot of a guy's schedule, doesn't it?
Does.
I had 2 sons in hockey, so I get it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. And so I teach an evidence course in the paralegal department. It's usually people who are trying to upgrade from legal assistant to paralegal.
Okay.
And it's interesting teaching professionals that are older for the most part, and they're doing it at night after they work. So it's interesting to drive down and teach that every year.
Is that a kind of a backdoor way, David, to becoming a lawyer? If you were a legal assistant and then you upgraded your skills to a paralegal, which makes you more money, and then are you in a position as an adult or a mature student to enter law school from that avenue rather than coming through the front door out of high school?
Potentially, yeah. Some people I have taught have gone on to law school. Some were lawyers in another jurisdiction who decided to come and take the course so they could be a paralegal before they did their training here.
Okay.
They still would have to go the 3 years of law school after, but some of them, they realized whether or not they want to do the law, because paralegals, it is a step up from being legal assistant.
Interesting stuff. Now, you're, again, with Law Show Basics in mind, do you describe yourself as a barrister/solicitor, or because you do go to court, and that's a barrister's job. In England, you would be a barrister, and you would have an administrative partner who would be the solicitor. In Canada, most lawyers are both, right?
We all are barristers and solicitors.
Right.
I'm called a litigator, but we do all our solicitor stuff as well. I always joke that I would prefer to be the barrister type, that have others do all the prep work, hand it to me, I go and argue, because that's the fun part of it.
Of course, yeah.
But no, I do both the aspects of it as well.
Okay. We have this in British Columbia. The all of family law is basically under the Family Law Act,
That's correct.
which was proclaimed in 2013. So it's been around about a year and a half, right?
Yeah, it came into effect March 18th of 2013, and it changed the aspects of law. We're governed by other acts as well, like the Divorce Act is federal, but the Provincial Act is the Family Law Act.
This is where it gets a little confusing, if you don't mind my interrupting right away, because you have overlapping jurisdictions. The whole matter of divorce is federal.
That's correct.
And yet, here we live in British Columbia, and no federal judge wants to know about division of assets and property and child custody. That's a provincial matter, or is it?
No, well, all the division of assets has to be dealt with by a federally appointed judge in the Supreme Court of British Columbia if it goes to court.
Okay.
But the Divorce Act is federal, and that it's historical, is based on the fact that in the prior to Confederation and at Confederation, people in Quebec couldn't get divorced, being Catholic.
Right.
So they said,
yes.
well, what about the Protestants who live in Quebec, because there was the English minority? So it became a federal matter. So the Divorce Act deals with divorce, ending the marriage, and the child support, spousal support, and custody aspects, what they're called corollary relief.
So when you're granted a divorce, either here in British Columbia or anywhere else in Canada, is that a federal document then, David?
No, it's a court order from the Supreme Court of British Columbia,
Okay.
but it's recognized across the country.
Oh, I see.
But
Okay.
only a judge can grant the divorce.
Okay. But as I understand it, the whole idea under the new Family Law Act here in British Columbia has been to try and keep as many of these divorce actions out of court as humanly possible, correct?
That's correct. They want us to do mediation, collaborative law, and keep things out of court if possible. The only thing the court has to do is grant the divorce.
Right.
There has to be an action for that, but they do want us to keep everything else out of court if possible.
Now, catch us up to speed. This is, we're trying to understand a lot of the new terminology, and the Family Law Act is part of the new terminology. But the granting of a divorce, for example, that's very old, and yet it's done through Supreme Court here in British Columbia.
That's correct.
Okay, but when you're hurt, when your case is, or if you have to go to court, if you for whatever your particular circumstances won't allow for mediation or any of these other new avenues that they really want people to use, if all of those fail and you end up in court, is it a provincial court? Or is it the Supreme? Do all divorce court cases get heard in the Supreme Court of BC?
If there's a divorce and an actual legal marriage and assets, it has to be.
Okay.
If you want to deal with those two matters, the divorce and the assets. All the other issues, such as children, guardianship,
Right.
custody, which is federal. They've changed the wording, and we can talk about that a bit later. But there are two levels of court. There's provincial and supreme.
Right.
And there is overlapping jurisdiction between the two.
And this is where some of us, me too included, obviously, find a little confusing with the crisscrossing jurisdiction.
It can be. The provincial court can only deal with the Family Law Act, so that which is a provincial legislation. The Supreme Court can deal with matters under the Divorce Act and the Family Law Act. Supreme Court decisions dealing with any of those matters supersedes any provincial court matter.
Okay.
So there's a choice we have to make with our clients as to which level of court is best for them at their particular time.
We need to take a break here. Dwayne's giving me the big red flag. But what percentage, based on your actual caseload, David, what percentage of divorce actions go to court versus those that are doing what the courts want them to do, which is settling outside of court under some other way?
I'd probably do trials in maybe 5% of the matters.
So down to that smaller number.
Most Supreme Court matters will resolve because they're fighting over their own money.
Right.
And so by the time they divide their assets, if they start off $1 million, divide those in two, and then pay their lawyers, they don't have that much left.
Okay, so what would constitute a case that simply couldn't be resolved through any of these? And we'll talk about some of the new players in the game, these counselors and child advocate experts and all of these new players. But what happens when that whole gang can't fix it?
That's when the matter ends up being heard by a judge.
Right.
And there can be a number of reasons. They can't agree on guardianship. They can't agree on division of a certain asset. whether it's an excluded asset or what. If there's a legal issue, that would take us to court.
But the danger, and I'm sure you explain this to your clients, and some of them are so angry, I'm sure that the explanation goes in one ear and out the other. But the danger is that when you go to court, there's a third person you've never met before going to decide your future based on whatever facts are brought to bear at that moment. You can lose big time, or you can win big time, and the third person who's making the decision doesn't care either way.
Well, yeah, they make their decision based on
the facts.
Exactly the facts, how the evidence comes out, their impressions of the witnesses, and what they believe the law to be. And you never know exactly what the result will be. And you can have a 20-year marriage. You're not getting a 20-year trial. You're getting 5 days,
right?
Maybe 6 days,
right?
And you can't get everything out the way you want.
Our guest is David Halkett from Macquarie Hunter. We're talking family law on this episode of The Law Show here on CIL 650, and we're just getting started. Stay with us. There's lots more still ahead.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.